But guys, let's talk about another team with a quarterback. Even though they're called New York, but they play in East Rutherford, New Jersey. I did like the New York Jets getting Justin Fields. That was a good pickup because with Fields to reunite with his former Ohio State buddy Garrett Wilson, and also too Aaron Glenn. I love the fact that the New York Jets now that they've moved on from Aaron Rodgers, now they can actually have a chance to establish a culture. He has a good enough defense. And Aaron Glenn, we know he's a defensive minded guy. He was a defensive coordinator for Detroit. You've got some pieces on the defensive mind with Quinn Williams and Sauce Gardner and them. I think with Justin Fields, with Brees Hall, with Wilson, I don't think that the Jets are going to make the playoffs or anything like that. But I do think that Jets fans will be at least pleased. I mean, heck, think about it. I mean, a couple of years ago, when Zach Wilson took over for Aaron Rodgers, they were close enough to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So Justin Fields, before Russell Wilson, they were 4-2. So I kind of like it for Justin Fields because you get to reunite with your former buddy, Garrett Wilson. I like what the New York Jets have been doing. Stop evaluating people based off Madden ratings, Woody Johnson, and
Oh
focus
boy.
on putting the right type of culture around you. Because we all know it's Buffalo's team to lose. We don't know what's going to happen with Miami. I love Tua, but he can't stay healthy. And then, of course, you look at the New England Patriots. They've done some things in free agency and in the offseason. So for the Jets, I do like it for Justin Fields. What's your thoughts, BRF?
Well, before I get into my thoughts about the Justin Fields move, I have a interesting little tidbit. I have an interesting little fact. I have a Madden fact, and y'all will get a kick out of this because I read this on IG. So we bring up the whole idea of Woody Johnson not acquiring Jerry Jeudy because his Madden rating was too low. So kick this though. Jerry Jeudy at the end of the season, I believe, had a Madden rating of 83, which was vastly improvement from the beginning of the year because he broke out. Pro Bowl, all that. Jerry Jeudy finally broke out this year. If you look at all of the New York Jets offseason acquisitions, you want to know their average Madden rating is?
What?
Big, big old 72. and there's Jerry Jeudy breaking out having a Pro Bowl season for the Cleveland Browns with the freaking with the merry-go-round at the quarterback position there. So you didn't hear from me. You didn't hear from me. I like the Justin Fields acquisition for the New York Jets. I do like it. I like it because they have weapons in place there. So I don't think he has to come in and feel like he's got to be the savior of the New York Jets franchise. He doesn't have to come in and do everything right off the bat. You have Garrett Wilson, you have Brees Hall, you have Braylon Allen. Nobody's talking about Tyler Conklin enough as the tight end, but he had a solid season for them last year. I mean, he's not like your typical. He's not the George. He's not in the George Kittle, Mark Andrews. He's not in that tier by any stretch. But he scores touchdowns and he makes big catches and he gets first downs in pressure situations. So Tyler Conklin he's a hell of a blocker at the tight end position. So shout out to him. He's one of the more underrated names in the league. That he's a solid pro. He's a solid pro. Yeah, just Justin Fields coming into this situation, just feeling like there's more stability with the coaching staff. Like I said, I was a huge fan of the Aaron Glenn, of them picking up Aaron Glenn to be the new head coach because we watched football and it was like a golden, if you if you want to call it a golden age of corners, when the position was like really, really, really deep, when you had a lot of teams that could throw their number one and their number two corners, and they both could be in Pro Bowl contention. You have to think about Aaron Glenn at his peak was one of the better number two corners in the National Football League, regardless of where he played, whether it be the New England Patriots, whether it be the New York Jets, whether it be anywhere he was. Aaron Glenn was a solid corner. So bringing a guy in with his mindset, I mean, Sauce Gardner ought to be like chomping at the bit to getting to work with a guy like Aaron Glenn, who understands coverages, who understands how to play on the boundaries at being the cornerback position. And Sauce Gardner, I mean, let's face it, having a down year in 2024, he should be very happy to see a guy like Aaron Glenn there. Going back to Justin Fields, like it was like I was saying earlier, he doesn't have to come in to be the savior. All Justin Fields needs to worry about is getting the ball in his playmakers' hands. Not trying to be like he was in Chicago, where he tried his hardest to try to be the Superman of that offense, and he just couldn't get it done because he just had absolutely nothing around him. He's got pieces around him with the New York Jets now. He just has to come in and almost kind of do what he did in Pittsburgh. You would think in a way, kind of like, kind of manage the ship. When you need to make plays, you make plays. When you have to make throws, you make throws. But for the most part, just making sure you don't necessarily always have to be the reason you win, but please do not be the reason you lose. So, and also think the contract he got, I think it was like a 2-year, $40 million deal. Not really a terrible deal for a guy like Justin Fields. That's not really a terrible deal. That's not bad at all.
Well,
A
one of
guy
them
his
with
age.
Pittsburgh offered him.
Yeah, I mean, it's like for a guy who's still as young as he is. I mean, that wasn't a terrible way to go out at all. So I think he's going to come in focused. He's going to come in motivated, and he's going to want to come here, go to the Jets, and show that he can really do this and really kind of take the next step in his career and take it to ultimately where he wants to be, and that's be recognized as one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And I definitely think he's capable of that with who he has with the New York Jets. So I like the signing for him, and I like the signing for the franchise. Don't want them. I just don't want those fans to put these unrealistic expectations of him on him to come in and immediately have to be the savior to put this team back on the map and put this team kind of back on the front pages of of the New York press releases and the New York papers. So if I'm Justin Fields, I'm coming in here. I'm ready to go, but just you don't have to do too much. You don't have to try to go out and win every game. You got enough playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. All you got to do is just get the ball in their hands. Trust them to do what they have to do to get you first downs, to get you touchdowns, which ultimately, hopefully for the New York Jets' sake, turn into wins and maybe contend for a wild card spot. And I think that even though that defense has lost some pieces, most noticeably, they let go of C.J. Mosley, most notably. But I mean, you still have Quentin Williams, you still have Sauce Gardner. You're getting Jermaine Johnson back from an injury, who was really coming into his own as an edge rusher before he got hurt. I mean, and I feel like the one person nobody talks about with the Jets is gosh, what's his name? I think they got an Anderson there too. They got a Will Anderson there too, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, Will Anderson the fourth, I think is what his name is. He's blossoming himself to be a really, really good player himself. So I mean, they got pieces there. They have pieces there. So he doesn't need to come in to try to like put his stamp on this team. Just come in, do your part, just distribute the ball, make plays when you have to. I think ultimately it could turn into good things for the New York Jets. I mean, I'm not expecting them to just up and just run away with this division, because I mean, at the end of the day, you still got the Buffalo Bills, and the AFC East is still the Buffalo Bills division to lose. And I mean, I mean, I'll just tell you right now, I'm picking them to win that division again, and we're way off of picks and all that other stuff for the 2025 season. But if I'm the New York Jets, I am mentally. I feel like I would feel like in a much better mental state as a franchise compared to where you were with Aaron Rodgers in 2023 and 2024. So shout out to Justin Fields. I hope he does well. But like I said, don't come in trying to be the savior. Don't play hero ball. Just trust your playmakers to do what they need to do with the ball in their hands, and I think you'll be okay.
Champ.
We're talking about all these weapons, all these defensive players, and the coaching. And I give you that. But where that line at? Where is that line? He gonna be running for his life again, just like he was in Chicago. The quarterback can't throw on his back. So unless Olu Fashanu comes into his own and they draft very, very well in the draft as far as offensive line is concerned, we're going to see a repeat of what happened in Chicago with him running for his life. Remember, Aaron Rodgers was not nearly as mobile or as athletic as Justin Fields. He was running for his life last year. So we've just put Justin Fields not only in the same position, but in the NFC East as he was in Chicago with.
Well, Champ, if you got concerned about the Jets O-line, why don't you ask for a roster spot for the Jets O-line?
I am 6 feet. I'm 6 feet like 280. That is not gonna work. Not in this. Now you would have caught me like 10 years ago. Yeah. But that offensive line is not up to par. Like I keep telling y'all, and this is, like I said, people disagree with me, but I will say this to this day. The most important position is not quarterback. It's the offensive line. That's the only position where everybody's play is depending on you, but nobody's play can make you better. Is the offensive line. Battles are won and lost in them trenches. And when you have a comparable offensive line, you make good running backs look like Hall of Famers. You make good quarterbacks into Hall of Famers. You make mediocre quarterbacks into Pro Bowlers. So he still doesn't have an offensive line. So unless they serie up that offensive line and Olu Fashanu comes into his own, he's still gonna have those same problems. And let's just face it. The Jets are going to find some way to mess this up again, even if he has a decent season. So we're just putting him on the NFC East version of the Chicago Bears, on the AFC East version of the Chicago Bears. That's what he just did. He went from the Chicago Bears to an organization with stability in the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he went from there to the AFC East version of the Chicago Bears, because they don't have a line either. They got all these skill position players, good defense, but you ain't got no line. And a defensive head coach, and you don't know who's going to be the offensive coordinator to develop another quarterback. So it's still so much uncertainty, although he has a second chance. So he's going to be running for his life again in a division where you have the Bills at, and their defense stay ready. Even when it's not top 10, it stays ready. Sean McVerman is a hell of a coach.
Defensive minded.
So you basically took yourself out of Chicago and put yourself back in Chicago by way of the New York City Jets. That's all he did. I'm not impressed. The thing is, look, they'd have been better off getting somebody in the draft and trying to get an offensive line. They don't have it. You can put Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, Jerry Rice, Emmitt Smith, and Barry Sanders all over the skill position. And you can top that off by having the two greatest tight ends of all time, and Tony Gonzalez and Gronk. If you don't have a comparable line, you're not going to get anywhere. So guess what? You left Chicago, took a break, got some stability in Pittsburgh, and then went back to Chicago by way of the New York Jets. That's all you did. I'm glad for his second chance. I think he deserved one because I don't think Chicago. I think if Chicago would have dedicated as much time and effort as they're doing with Caleb Williams, if they would have did that with Justin Fields, I think he would have been successful. Because we've seen flashes at times, just like we see with Caleb Williams last year. But you have no offensive line, and as a quarterback, when you don't have in a line, that's your worst enemy right there. So,
So in other words, he made a mistake by leaving Pittsburgh and joining New York.
They didn't. I mean, you can't call it a mistake when they weren't going to bring him back in the first place. And the
you
AFC
can't
and this
call it
and the state of the NFC East is in a much worse position than that NFC North was. So I mean, it's not. I mean, it'd be one thing if he was going to the NFC North and having to deal with the competition he's dealing with there. I mean, as far as like, even though he doesn't have the greatest offensive line, outside of Buffalo, who are you worrying about on defense in the AFC East? Miami, the only person you're worried about on defense is Chop Robinson. And who are you worrying about on defense with the New England Patriots? So I mean, it's not like you got like a murderer's row of defenses in the AFC East. So I mean, if they just build a competent O line there, it's not like and honestly, you're not even really fearing the Buffalo Bills defense all that much because they have weak points. So you're not really fearing them all that much. Can they make big plays and get pass rush every so often? Yeah, they can do that. But you're not fearing them on like a quarter to quarter basis. So I mean, it's not like he's going to the AFC East and he's just like, oh my gosh, who I got to worry about on defense. So now I agree with you on this one. It's up to the New York Jets to do their part in the front office to build up that offensive line. But I'm not going to the AFC East scared of any of those defenses.
You remember when you know this for a fact, BRL. You remember Adrian Claiborne, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, remember when he had that 5-sack game against that mediocre offensive line, right?
6.
So that just goes to show you what even the average defensive end can do if you are against a weak offensive line. So, I mean,
that was also one of them games where he just so happened to get the luckiest matchup of his life too, because that tackle he went up against did not deserve to start that night.
Again, and the thing is, he's going to have tackles like Adrian Claiborne faced every single night on his team, unless, like I said, Olu Fashanu comes into his own and they get some offensive line in the draft. So even if you don't have an offensive line, then the average pass rusher is going to have a hell of a night against you. Same thing with the defensive line. If you don't have at least a defensive line, then the average quarterback is going to just tear you apart. So, like I said, the battles are won in them trenches. And guess what? When you're not winning battles in the trenches, it's not going to work out for you. Justin Fields is very, very athletic. He's going to have that working for him. But I don't trust this front office. I don't trust this O-line. And guess what? It's when you have owners out here basing stuff on Madden ratings, pretty much cut and dry where this organization is going. And like I said, you just went from the Chicago Bears less than a year ago. Now you're going back there by way of New York City. And that's the New York Jets because they're going to do the same thing.